Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavana Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madana Mohana Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavan Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madana Mohan Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavana Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madan Mohan Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Gopi Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Gaura Hari Gaura Hari Jaya Gaura Hari Nitai Gauranga Jaya Gaura Hari Nitai Gauranga Gaura Hari Gaura Hari Nitai Gauranga Gaura Hari Gaura Hari Nitai Gauranga Gaura Hari Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So to get us ready for Tuesday Janmashtami, I have selected a very nice section from Srimad Bhagavatam. So here is the scene. Just prior to the battle of Kurukshetra, Vidura ji tried one more time to convince his brother Dhritarashtra to do the right thing. He went to his brother and told on his face that what you're doing with your son Duryodhana is wrong. You're going to lose everything. I tell you right now, stop this nonsense. When Duryodhana heard this, he became so angry that he ordered his servants to beat Vidura and leave him only with his breath. So Vidura realized it's hopeless. I have tried one last time, but these Kauravas are too sinful. So Vidura left his bow at the door, meaning he's finished now as being a warrior. And Vidura went on pilgrimage. He did not want to see anything of the Kurukshetra war. So we pick up there. So this is where we pick up. After leaving Hastinapur, Vidura took shelter of many places of pilgrimage. Those places of pilgrimage are Krishna's lotus feet. He did this with a desire to gain a high order of pious life. Vidura traveled to holy places where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. And just as a note, this is why India is a sacred land. It is filled with so many holy places. America is the land of sense gratification, but India traditionally is the land of dharma, the land of religion. Continuing. At last, Vidura reached the bank of the Yamuna, where he happened to meet Uddhava, the great devotee of Lord Krishna. But for a moment, Uddhava remained dead silent, and his body did not move. Uddhava became absorbed in the nectar of remembering Krishna's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy. And Uddhava appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. So what had happened, while Vidura went on traveling, the battle of Kurukshetra took place, and as well the Maushala Leela, or the disappearance of Krishna and his family, also took place. So this all happened while Vidura was on pilgrimage, and now he's going to hear from Uddhava many things. It was so observed by Vidura that Uddhava had all the transcendental bodily changes due to total spiritual ecstasy, but he was trying to wipe away tears of separation from his eyes. Thus Vidura could understand that Uddhava had completely assimilated extensive love for Krishna. The great devotee Uddhava soon came back from the abode of the Lord back to the human plane, and wiping his eyes, Uddhava awakened his reminiscence of the past and spoke to Vidura in a pleasing mood. "Oh, my dear Vidura, the sun of the world, Lord Krishna, has finally set, and our house has now been swallowed by the great snake of time. So what can I tell you about our welfare? This universe with all its planets, is now most unfortunate. And even more unfortunate are the members of the Yadu dynasty, because they could not identify Lord Hari as the personality of Godhead any more than fish could identify the moon. So what does this teach us? Familiarity breeds contempt. The Yadus were so intimately connected with Krishna that practically they took it for granted. Here, Uddhava continues. The Yadus were all experienced devotees, learned and expert in psychic study. And over and above this, they were always with the Lord in all kinds of relaxations. But still, they were only able to know Krishna as the one supreme who dwells everywhere. So what Uddhava is saying, that Krishna's own family, by and large, could not really see or understand Krishna as he is. Other devotees like the Pandavas and Uddhava, they had a much better, clearer, and more close understanding of Krishna, whereas his own family could only appreciate him as Vasudeva, the all-pervasive. Uddhava continues, under no circumstance can the words of persons bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord deviate the intelligence of those who are completely surrendered souls. Lord Sri Krishna, who manifested his eternal form before the vision of everyone on the earth, performed his disappearance by removing his form from the sight of those who were unable to see Krishna as he is. So that's the point I was just making. Only a very few people could understand Krishna as he is when Krishna was present. And why is this? Because they did not execute required penance. Krishna appeared in this mortal world by his internal potency, Yogamaya. Krishna came in his eternal form like a human being, which is just suitable for his pastimes. These pastimes were wonderful for everyone, even for those proud of their own opulence, including Krishna himself in his other forms as the Lord of Vaikuntha, Narayana. Thus, Sri Krishna's transcendental body is the ornament of all ornaments. All the demigods, from the upper, lower, and middle universal planetary systems, assembled at the altar of the Rajasuya sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhisthira. And after seeing the beautiful bodily features of Lord Krishna, everyone contemplated that Krishna was the ultimate dexterous creation of Brahma, the creator of human beings. The damsels of Braja, after pastimes of laughter, humor, and exchanges of glances, were anguished when Krishna left them, and they used to follow Krishna with their eyes. And thus the gopis sat down with stunned intelligence, and they could not finish their household duties. The personality of Godhead, the all-compassionate controller of both spiritual and material creations, is Aja, unborn. But when there is friction between his peaceful devotees and persons who are under the modes of nature, Krishna takes birth just like fire, accompanied by the Mahatattva. O Vidura, when I think of Krishna, how he was born in the prison house of Vasudeva. So that's the original Janmashtami. Although he is unborn, how Krishna went away from his father's protection to Vraja and lived there incognito out of fear of the enemy. And how, although unlimitedly powerful, Krishna fled from Mathura in fear. All these bewildering incidents give me distress. Lord Krishna begged pardon from his parents for Krishna and Balaram's inability to serve their feet due to being away from home because of great fear of Kamsa. At that time, Krishna told his parents, "O mother, O father, please excuse us for this inability." O Vidura, all this behavior of Krishna gives me pain in my heart. Who, after smelling the dust of Krishna's lotus feet even once, could ever forget it? Simply by expanding the leaves of his eyebrows, Krishna has given the death blow to those who were burdening the earth. O Vidura, you have personally seen how the king of Chedi achieved the success in yoga practice by merging into Krishna's body. Although Shishupal hated Lord Krishna right from the beginning of his life, even the actual yogis aspire after such success with great interest by performance of their various practices. So who can tolerate separation from Krishna? Certainly others who were fighters on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were purified by the onslaught of Arjuna's arrows. And while seeing the lotus face of Krishna, so pleasing to the eyes, every one of them achieved the abode of Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna is the Lord of all kinds of threes and is independently supreme by achievement of all kinds of fortune. Krishna is worshipped by the eternal maintainers of the creation, who offer Krishna the paraphernalia of worship by touching the millions of helmets to his feet. Therefore, O Vidura, does it not give us pain, his servitors, when we remember that Lord Krishna used to stand before Ugrasena, who was sitting on the royal throne, and used to submit explanations before Ugrasena, saying, "O my Lord, please let it be known to you." Alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than Krishna, who granted the position of mother to the she-demon Putana, although Putana was unfaithful and prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast? I consider the demons who are inimical towards Krishna to be more fortunate than devotees, because while fighting with Krishna, absorbed in thoughts of enmity, they are able to see Krishna carried on the shoulder of Garuda, the son of Taksha Kasyapa, and carrying the wheel weapon in his hand. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, being prayed to by Lord Brahma to bring welfare to the earth, was begotten by Vasudeva in the womb of his wife Devaki, born in the prison of King of Bhoja. Thereafter, Krishna, being afraid of Kamsa, brought Krishna to the cow pastures of Maharaj Nanda, and there Krishna lived for 11 years like a covered flame with his elder brother Baladev. So for 11 years, Krishna was in Vrindavan, and then at 11 years, Krishna was brought to Mathura, and he finally killed Kamsa. In Krishna's childhood, the Almighty Lord was surrounded by cowherder boys and calves, And thus Krishna traveled on the shore of the Yamuna River, through gardens densely covered with trees and filled with vibrations of chirping birds. When Krishna displayed his activities, just suitable for childhood, Krishna was visible only to the residents of Vrindavan. Sometimes Krishna would cry, and sometimes Krishna would laugh, just like an ordinary human child. And while doing so, Krishna would appear like a lion cub. While herding the very beautiful bulls, Krishna, who is the reservoir of all opulence and fortune, used to blow his flute, and thus Krishna enlivened his faithful followers, the cowherder boys. The great demon wizards, who were able to assume any form, were engaged by the king of Bhoja, Kamsa, to kill Krishna. But in the course of his pastimes, Krishna killed them as easily as a child breaks dolls. The inhabitants of Vrindavan were perplexed by great difficulties because a certain portion of the Yamuna was poisoned by the chief of the reptiles, Kaliya. Krishna chastised the snake king within the waters and thus drove Kaliya away after coming out of the river. Krishna caused the cows to drink the water and proved that the water was once again in its natural state. So, there were only 2 demons that Krishna did not kill. So one of them was Kaliya. He simply punished Kaliya, but because his wives, the Nagapatnis, prayed for their husband's deliverance, Krishna did not kill Kaliya. He punished him by dancing on his heads and subduing Kaliya. And when Kaliya surrendered, then Krishna told Kaliya, "You cannot remain in Vrindavan." And Prabhupada said Kaliya thus went to Fiji. So be careful if you go to Fiji. You might meet Kaliya. Uddhava continues. The Supreme Lord Krishna desired to utilize the opulent financial strength of Maharaj Nanda for worship of the cows. And Krishna also wanted to give a lesson to Indra, the king of heaven, because Indra was puffed up. Thus, Krishna advised his father to perform worship of Go, the pasturing land and the cows, with the help of learned brahmanas. O sober Vidura, King Indra, his honor having been thus insulted, poured water incessantly on Vrindavan, and thus the inhabitants of Vraja, the land of cows, were greatly distressed. But the compassionate Lord Krishna saved all of them from danger with his pastime umbrella, the Govardhan hill. And in the 3rd season of the year, Krishna enjoyed as the central beauty in the assembly of women by attracting the gopis with his pleasing songs in the autumn night brightened by moonshine. So here, Uddhava finishes up a synopsis of Krishna's Leela in Vrindavan. Krishna's Leela is performed in 3 dhams: Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwaraka. And as I said at the beginning, Uddhava is simply giving a synopsis. So now he begins his synopsis of Mathura and Dwaraka. O Vidura, thereafter Lord Krishna went to Mathura with his brother Baladev. And just to please their parents, Krishna and Balaram dragged Kamsa, the leader of public enemies, down from his throne and killed him, pulling Kamsa along the ground with great strength. Then Krishna learned all the Vedas with their different branches simply by hearing them once from his teacher Sandipani Muni, whom Krishna rewarded by bringing back his dead son from the region of Yamaloka. Attracted by the beauty and fortune of Rukmini, the daughter of King Bhishmaka, many great princes and kings assembled to marry her. But Lord Krishna, stepping over the other hopeful candidates, carried Rukmini away as his own share, just as Garuda carried away nectar. By subduing 7 bulls whose noses were not yet pierced, Krishna achieved the hand of Princess Nagnajiti in the open competition to select her bridegroom. Although Krishna was victorious, his competitors asked for the hand of the princess, and thus there was a fight. But being well equipped with weapons, Krishna killed or wounded all of them. But Krishna himself was not hurt in the least. And just to please his dear wife Satyabhama, Krishna brought back the Parijata tree from heaven, just as an ordinary husband would do. But Indra, the king of heaven, induced by his wives, henpecked as Indra was, ran after Krishna with full force to fight him. Naraka Asura, the son of Dhairitri, the earth, tried to grasp the whole sky, and for this Bhauma Asura was killed by Krishna in a fight. Mother Earth then prayed to Krishna, and this led to the return of the kingdom to the son of Naraka Asura, and that son is actually related to Krishna. And thus Krishna entered the house of the demon. There in the house of the demon, all the princesses kidnapped by Narakasura at once became alert upon seeing Krishna, the friend of the distressed. They looked upon Krishna with eagerness, joy, and shyness, and offered to be his wives. All those princes were lodged in different apartments, and Krishna simultaneously assumed different bodily expansions, exactly matching each and every princess. Krishna accepted their hands in perfect rituals by his internal potency. Thus Krishna only had 16,108 wives. Just to expand himself according to his transcendental features, Krishna begot in each and every one of those 16,000 wives 10 offspring, 10 sons, and 1 daughter. And those sons had exactly Krishna's qualities. Then Kalayavana, the king of Magadha, and Shalva attacked the city of Mathura. And when the city was encircled by their soldiers, Krishna refrained from killing them personally, just to show the power of his own men. And of kings like Shambhara, Dvivida, Bana, Mura, Bolvala, and many other demons, such as Dantavakra, some Krishna killed himself, and some Krishna caused to be killed by others, like Sri Baladev. So I mentioned that there were 2 demons Krishna did not kill. So the other was this Bana Asura. He was saved because Lord Shiva protected Bana and asked Krishna, "Don't kill this Bana because he is my great devotee." So Bana Asura had 1,000 arms. So instead of Krishna killing Bana Asura, he cut off with his Sudarshan chakra 996 arms, and he left him with 4, but he didn't kill. Then Vidura, Krishna caused all the kings, both the enemies and those on the side of your fighting nephews, the Pandavas, to be killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. All those kings were so great and strong that the earth seemed to shake as they traversed the warfield. Duryodhana was bereft of his fortune and duration of life because of the intricacy of the ill advice given by Karna, Dushashan, Saubala Shakuni. But when Duryodhana lay on the ground along with his followers, his thighs broken, although Duryodhana was powerful, still Krishna was not happy to see the scene. But after the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna thus thought to himself, "The abatement of the earth's great burden, 18 Akshalhinis, has now been effected with the help of Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, and Bhima. But what is this? For there is still the great strength of the Yadu dynasty, born of myself, which may be an even more unbearable burden." So, when they quarrel among themselves, influenced by intoxication, their eyes red like copper because of drinking madhu, then only will they disappear. Otherwise, it will not be possible. And so, just before my own disappearance, this incident will take place. Thus thinking to himself, Lord Krishna established Maharaj Yudhisthira in the position of supreme control of the world in order to show the ideal administration on the path of piety. And that was the main reason why Krishna wanted this battle of Kurukshetra. He wanted to establish Yudhisthira as emperor, not Duryodhana. And the embryo of Puru's descendant, begotten by the great hero Abhimanyu in the womb of Uddhava, was burnt by the weapon of the son of Drona. But later Parikshit was again protected by Krishna. The Supreme Lord induced the son of Dharma to perform 3 horse sacrifices, and Maharaj Yudhisthira, constantly following Krishna, protected and enjoyed the earth, assisted by his younger brothers. Simultaneously, Krishna enjoyed life in the city of Dwaraka, strictly in conformity with the Vedic customs of society. Krishna was situated in detachment and knowledge, enunciated by the Sankhya system of philosophy. There Krishna resided in his transcendental body, the residence of the goddess of fortune, with his usual gentle and sweetly smiling face, Krishna's nectarian words, and his flawless character. Krishna enjoyed his pastimes both in this world and in the heavenly planets, specifically in the association of the Yadu dynasty. At leisure hours offered by night, Krishna enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with his wives. Krishna was thus engaged in household life for many, many years. But at last, Krishna's detachment from ephemeral sex life was fully manifested. O Vidura, every living entity is controlled by a supernatural force, and thus one's sense enjoyment is also under the control of that supernatural force. No one, therefore, can put faith in Lord Krishna's transcendental sense activities unless one has become a devotee of Krishna by rendering devotional service. By the way, you're doing devotional service right now because this hearing that you are now doing is the first item of devotional service. So you will be able to put your faith completely in Lord Krishna. Uddhava continues. Once upon a time, great sages were made angry by the sporting activities of the princely descendants of the Yadu and Bhoja dynasties, and thus, as desired by Krishna, the sages cursed them. A few months passed, and then, bewildered by Krishna, all the descendants of the Vrishni, Bhoja, and Andaka dynasties, who were incarnations of demigods, went to Prabhas Kshetra, while those who were eternal devotees of Krishna did not leave, but remained in Dwaraka. After arriving there, all of them took bath, and with the water of this place of pilgrimage, they offered respects to the forefathers, demigods, and great sages. They also gave cows to the Brahmins in royal charities. And thereafter, they offered the Brahmanas highly delicious food, which was first offered to the personality of Godhead. And they offered their respectful obeisances by touching their heads to the ground. Thereafter, all of the descendants of Vrishni and Bhoja, being permitted by the Brahmanas, partook of the remnants of prasad, but they also drank liquor made of rice. And by drinking, they all became delirious, bereft of knowledge, and touched the cores of each other's hearts with harsh words. As by the friction of bamboos, destruction thus takes place, so also at sunset, by the interaction of the faults of intoxication, all their minds became unbalanced and destruction took place. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, thus foreseeing the end of his family by his internal potency, then went to the bank of the river Sarasvati, sipped water, and sat down underneath a tree. Krishna is the vanquisher of the distress of one who is surrendered unto him. Thus, he who desired to destroy his family told me previously to go to Badarik Ashram. And yet, in spite of my knowing Krishna's desire to destroy his dynasty, I followed Krishna because it was impossible for me to bear separation from the lotus feet of my Lord and Master. Thus following him, I saw Krishna sitting alone and deeply thinking, taking shelter at the bank of the river Sarasvati, although Krishna is the shelter of the goddess of fortune. Krishna's body is blackish, but it is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and very, very beautiful. His eyes are always peaceful, and they are reddish like the rising morning sun. And I could immediately recognize Krishna as God because of his four hands, different symbolic representations, and yellow silk garments. Krishna was sitting, taking rest against a young banyan tree with his right lotus foot on his left thigh. And although Krishna had left all household comforts, still he looked quite cheerful in that posture. At that time, after traveling in many parts of the world, Maitreya, a great devotee of Krishna, as well as a friend and well-wisher of the great sage Vyas reached that spot out of his own perfect accord. Maitreya Muni was greatly attached to Krishna, and Maitreya was listening in a pleasing attitude with his shoulder lowered. So you can see in the picture behind me, this is where we're at. Here is Krishna, here is Uddhava, and here is Maitreya. So that's why I chose this picture. This is where we're at right now. With a smile and particular glance upon me, having allowed me to rest, Krishna spoke as follows. O Vasu, I know from within your mind what you desired in the days of yore, when the Vasus and other demigods, responsible for expanding the universal affairs, performed sacrifices. But you particularly desired to achieve my association. This is very difficult to obtain for others, but I awarded it unto you. O honest Uddhava, your present life is the last and supermost, because in this term of life you have been awarded my ultimate favor. Now you can go to my transcendental abode, Vaikuntha, by leaving this universe of conditioned living entities. Your visit in this lonely place, because of your pure and unflinching devotional service, is a great boon for you. O Uddhava, in the days of yore, at the beginning of the creation, I spoke unto Lord Brahma, who was situated on the lotus that grows out of my navel, about my transcendental glories, which the great sages describe as Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is why I say the first instruction, the first knowledge in the universe is Srimad Bhagavatam. And you can read about that in the second canto, chapter 9. The first knowledge are the 4 nutshell or seed verses of Bhagavatam. After that, then the Vedas come. The original knowledge in the universe is Bhagavatam in 4 verses. Uddhava then said, O Vidura, when I was thus favored at every moment by Krishna and addressed by him with great affection, my words failed in tears, and the hairs of my body erupted. And after smearing my tears, I, with folded hands, spoke like this. O my Lord, devotees who engage in your transcendental loving service have no difficulty in achieving anything within the realm of the 4 principles. O Great One, as far as I am concerned, I have preferred only to engage in the loving service of your lotus feet. My Lord, even the great learned sages become disturbed in their intelligence when they see that your greatness engages in so-called fruitive work, although you are free from all desires, that you take birth, although you are unborn, and that you flee out of fear of the enemy, and take shelter in a fort, although you are the controller of invincible time, and that you enjoy householder life surrounded by many women, although you enjoy in yourself. O my Lord, your eternal self is never divided by the influence of time, and there is no limitation to your perfect knowledge. Thus, you are sufficiently able to consult with yourself, and yet you called upon me for consultation as if bewildered, although you are never bewildered. And this act of yours bewilders me. My Lord, kindly explain to us, if you think us competent, the transcendental knowledge which gives enlightenment about yourself and which you explained before to Brahmaji. And so, Vidura, when I thus expressed my heartfelt desires unto Krishna, he instructed me about his transcendental situation. O Vidura, I have thus studied the path of understanding self-knowledge from my spiritual master, the personality of Godhead. And thus, after circumambulating him, I have come to this place, very much aggrieved due to separation. O my dear Vidura, now I am mad for want of the pleasure of seeing Krishna. And just to mitigate this, I am now proceeding to Badarik Ashram in the Himalayas for association, as I have thus been instructed by Krishna. There, in Badarik Ashram, the personality of Godhead, in his incarnation as the sages Nara Narayan, he has been undergoing great penances since time immemorial for the welfare of all amiable living entities. Shukadeva Goswami then said, after hearing from Uddhava all about the annihilation of his friends and relatives, the learned Vidura pacified his overwhelming bereavement by dint of his transcendental knowledge. While Uddhava, the chief and most confidential amongst the devotees of Krishna, was going away, in affection and confidence, Vidura questioned him. O Uddhava, because the servants of Vishnu wander in the interest of serving others, it is quite fit that you kindly describe the self-knowledge which you have been enlightened by Krishna himself. But instead, Uddhava said, O Vidura, you may take lessons from the great learned sage Maitreya, who is nearby, and who is worshipful for reception of transcendental knowledge. Maitreya was directly instructed by the personality of Godhead, while Krishna was about to quit this mortal world. Shukadeva Goswami then said, O king, after thus discussing with Vidura the transcendental name, fame, qualities of Krishna on the bank of the Yamuna, Uddhava was overwhelmed with great affliction. Uddhava passed the night as if it were a moment, and then went away. King Parikshit then inquired, at the end of the pastimes of Krishna, Sri Krishna, after the disappearance of the members of the Vrishni and Bhoja dynasty, what did Uddhava, why did he remain alone? Shukadev said, my dear king, the cursing of the Brahmanas was only a plea, but the actual fact was that the supreme desire of Krishna wanted to disappear from the face of the earth after dispatching his excessively numerous family members. So Krishna thought to himself, now I shall leave the vision of this mundane world, and I see that Uddhava, the foremost of my devotees, is the only one who can be directly entrusted with knowledge about me. Uddhava is not inferior to me in any way, because Uddhava is never affected by the modes of material nature. Therefore, Uddhava may remain in this world in order to disseminate specific knowledge about me. Shukadeva Goswami then informed Parikshit that Uddhava, being thus instructed by the personality of Godhead, who is the source of all Vedic knowledge, and who is the spiritual master of the three worlds, reached the pilgrimage site of Badarik Ashram and engaged himself there in trance to satisfy Krishna. Vidura also heard from Uddhava about the appearance and disappearance of Lord Krishna, the Supersoul. Krishna's glorious acts and Krishna's acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes are very difficult for anyone other than Krishna's devotees to understand. And for the beasts, they are simply a mental disturbance. Understanding that he was remembered by Lord Krishna while quitting this world, Vidura began to cry loudly, overwhelmed by the ecstasy of love. And after passing a few days on the bank of the river Yamuna, Vidura, the self-realized soul, reached the bank of the Ganges where the great sage Maitreya was situated. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I bless you all that by hearing this narration, Krishna will bless you with happiness, peace, tranquility, good fortune, and may you become more and more attached to Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.